With Robert F. Kennedy Jr. recently appointed as Secretary of Health and Human Services, there is now a critical opportunity to address the health risks of wireless radiation from cell phones and Wi-Fi. Wireless technology has become an inescapable part of modern life, but with it comes a responsibility to understand and address its potential health impacts. Extensive scientific evidence suggests that exposure to wireless radiation carries health risks, especially for children and vulnerable populations. It's time for transparent policies and safety standards to protect public health. Contrary to claims that the evidence on RF radiation is mixed, the majority of studies conducted on the effects of wireless radiation indicate potential health risks. Thousands of peer-reviewed studies across decades demonstrate the dangers of radio frequency radiation. Research consistently points to links between RF exposure and various adverse health effects, including increased cancer risk. Studies like those from the U.S. National Toxicology Program and the Ramazzini Institute have shown clear evidence that RF radiation exposure leads to cancer in animal models, especially malignant brain tumors. Neurological effects. Research has shown that RF radiation exposure is associated with neurological disorders such as headaches, memory issues, and behavioral changes. DNA and cellular damage. Non-thermal RF radiation can damage DNA, induce oxidative stress, and interfere with cellular repair mechanisms, potentially leading to long-term health issues. Hormonal and reproductive disruption. RF radiation affects hormone levels, which can influence fertility and developmental health, particularly in children. While the World Health Organization classifies RF radiation as possibly carcinogenic to humans, this classification is based on a cautious assessment. Much of the current data suggests that RF radiation likely poses a higher risk than this classification implies. WHO's recent review downplaying these risks has sparked controversy, especially as many critics point out WHO's reliance on industry-tied organizations like the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, which focuses only on short-term thermal effects. The Federal Communications Commission, responsible for setting RF radiation exposure guidelines, established its safety standards in 1996, ignoring the non-thermal biological effects that research now shows are crucial. The FCC's failure to update these guidelines leaves the public vulnerable to the health effects of everyday wireless device use, especially as RF radiation exposure is now a daily part of life for billions worldwide. In 2021, a landmark ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit found that the FCC's failure to update its guidelines was unjustified and did not account for substantial evidence of non-thermal risks. This court decision reinforces the urgent need for a regulatory overhaul. With RFK Jr. in his new role, HHS has the chance to lead an informed, science-based initiative to address these risks. Here are some key recommendations. Initiate independent long-term research. Launch extensive independent research programs focused on the long-term effects of RF radiation exposure, particularly on children, pregnant women, and those with pre-existing conditions. The halting of NTP's RF radiation research must be reversed. Revise and strengthen FCC safety standards. Collaborate with the FCC to ensure that RF safety guidelines are based on modern science, including both thermal and non-thermal biological effects. This includes prioritizing research that is independent of industry influence. Educate the public on safe usage practices. Develop public awareness campaigns focused on practical steps to minimize RF exposure, such as using hands-free options, limiting call duration, and keeping devices away from the body. Children and adolescents, who are more vulnerable to RF radiation, should be a primary focus. Encourage innovation in safer wireless technologies. Support technological advancements that minimize RF emissions, especially as we move towards 5G and beyond. Industry should be encouraged to develop safer alternatives that reduce exposure without sacrificing connectivity. Promote transparency and independence in regulatory bodies. Address conflicts of interest within organizations that advise on RF safety. Ensure that policies are guided by transparent, independent scientific evidence that puts public health above corporate profits. As HHS Secretary, RFK Jr. has the unique opportunity to champion the public's right to safer technology. By prioritizing these actions, he can lead an initiative that will significantly reduce health risks associated with wireless radiation exposure. The time for decisive action is now, before wireless technology's potential harms are further normalized and entrenched in society. The evidence is clear. Wireless radiation poses a significant health risk. It is both a scientific and moral imperative to protect future generations by addressing these dangers with robust, science-based policies. Visit rfsafe.com to learn more.